Exterior, castle wall. A gate stands shut. It jumps with a randomized thud, then bursts open after a randomized delay. A horde of monsters pours out. They're sprinting across the grass, following a cursor. The grass flows from left to right as items follow downstream towards the mob. The mob loses health slowly over time as a small town approaches. The skeletons, guided by the cursor, slam into the town and deal damage to it. The town retaliates and damages the monsters back. When the town is defeated, it poofs and turns into resources as the mob regains speed. These resources hang in the air, then zip to the corner where a bag sits. This continues until the mob dies. After a brief breakdown screen with the stats of your run, you are returned to the upgrade screen where you're introduced to new mechanics. Have you ever heard of a Lich? If you're at all into fantasy tabletop, I bet you know all too well. The ancient, powerful beings of nearly pure energy that ascended out of their corporeal form and shed their flesh and blood in favor of power and, most importantly, time. Time to research, time to practice, time to create and just enjoy life. Ironically, they had to die and commit to being undead to obtain this. Speaking of desperate, elderly men trying to cling to relevancy by burning their lives to the ground, with the recent downfall of Twitter, every game dev and artist I follow has been discussing where the new social media hub will be for artists. Some people think it's Mastodon, which just seems like personal blog websites again. But I personally am probably going to go back to NewGrounds, I think. Where do you even go to communicate with other content creators in the modern day and age? I've been thinking a lot lately about game development. Let's go look at the indie games on NewGrounds. I've always been a fan of incremental and idle games, so let's check those out. Huh, Drillionaire looks fun. I gotta tell you the truth. I like programming way more than I like making videos. I have all this footage, but I have no desire to turn it into a video. I just want to make more games. That's why this channel has fallen so far. Content creation is really hard, turns out. It pretty quickly became a job instead of a hobby, except it was a job that doesn't even pay. Huh. This gives me an idea. Could I make a game? Could I do it? What does it even take to make one? I've actually released one, twice. But I keep feature creeping myself and running so far over budget that I have to kill the project. Maybe I should just go back to focusing on my skills and try to get a job as an indie dev somewhere. So I've got this idea. But the last few have been statistical declines in quality. Or the algorithm has abandoned me completely, I'm not sure. Either way, the scope needs to be hyper-focused on this one. In Dungeons & Dragons, liches are nearly any magical caster who's committed to being dead, and then they undie. First, they prepare a magical contraption called a phylactery to house part of their soul or life force. This phylactery must consume another living creature's soul or life force to maintain its own power. After they've prepared this, they die. If they prepared correctly, their soul is returned to their corpse. Glowing energy shoots from their eyes and any holes in their body. Ew. And their skin shrivels up and falls off. They are now, functionally, immortal. If they do die, their current body is reformed near the phylactery in no more than 10 days. You know, like that blue guy from Watchmen? There's talk about them also being able to possess other dead bodies, even objects, but that's kind of up to your DM. Going one step further, they can augment their bones by replacing them with gems. They can inset the gems into their skull, or even place them in their eye sockets. These gems act as magical conduits that each house a fraction of their soul, like that snake-faced guy from Harry Potter. Once they have enough of these, their need for their own bones slowly goes away, and they become nothing more than a skull and some gems. Spine and ribcage are optional. So what kind of game can I make about lichdom? This is a memorial for Combat Casino, by the way. It's officially dead. I hate to say it, it's dead in the water. The initial release did well, but then the follow-up and remake went nowhere. $0 in revenue. So I have to move on. I have to accept my losses and start the next project. Sometimes that's just what life is. So the idea. It's an idle game, but you play minigames like one of those incremental types. It's an auto player like Vampire Survivors or a $3.99 like. Idle skilling is a huge influence for the interface. Drillionaire inspired the primary gameplay loop. Can you even do a YouTube channel in the modern world as a single person without Mr. Beast money? I don't know how many times I can keep making videos and mods that don't go anywhere. How do people upload thousands of videos and get no views without going crazy? I have to count myself lucky because I skipped a significant portion of the process thanks to sheer circumstance. But how far can circumstances even take you? Sometimes I wonder if I've hit the limit of how far that is. I started by just writing down my ideas. I was just letting them flow out. I tried to collect them onto separate pages, organize them in some way. I kind of managed it, but some of them got mixed up. This made it difficult to concept, but overall I found this much easier than typing. I decided to phase it out, each phase being a video, which is made before Unity is even open. After that, all that's left is to open up Unity and get started. Phase 0 is where we are right now. How many phases are there? About 7, I think, at the current moment anyway. After a night of heavy thinking, I went to bed because it was now 12 a.m. and I had spent the last 5 hours concepting. Except, I didn't really go to sleep. I laid in bed for hours thinking about how many hundreds of hours I had poured into Combat Casino and Minecraft mods, and how now the algorithm has entirely decided that I'm not worthy. Or maybe I'm just not good at thumbnails? Maybe my titles are worse than they used to be, or maybe it's a fluke and I'm a sham. I spent some time thinking about how there were some things I could salvage from Combat Casino. I made a cool save system and an audio manager that deserved to see the light of day. Maybe I could pull them into their own packages and import them into future projects. The input system I had was frankly genius. Using scriptable objects to allow for cross-scene references with an event broadcaster is next-level stuff. Thanks, Unity tutorials. The following day I woke up at the crack of 12 p.m., gathered my things, and assembled in my office. I started transcribing my ideas to cards for easier organization. Then I started drawing what I wanted each screen to look like. Okay, so I'm kind of embarrassed about these, but here they are. Now I can easily organize my phases. Phase 1, the core gameplay loop. This is the base game where you guide a zombie or skeletons into people and items and towns to collect them. This is the entirety of Phase 1. No upgrades, no super in-depth mechanics, just a game. I envision this part much like the start of Jetpack Joyride, a slight pause right before the chaos of a run. Phase 2, the Manufactorium. A room with 6 shadows, a skeleton is on 1. On the left is a human. This is you. You are casting a spell via progress bar. When the bar fills up, the skeleton gains 1 troop. The icon changes to represent multiple skeletons. Tapping on this skeleton pile shows 2 buttons labeled Health and Attack with the text Upgrade above them. To the side of them is the word Cost. There's an icon with a number next to it. The cost of these upgrades is the items gained in the previous rampage. Below you is a list of all resources and how many you have. There's a gate button that takes you to the front gate, with a single launch button hovering in the middle. I wanted to make the player wait momentarily to regain their strength before launching another assault. This downtime will be shaved down over the course of the game until it's practically non-existent, potentially even entirely automated. Phase 3, the Tower. This is the first upgrade screen in the game. It's framed as building a better tower. There are stacked boxes connected via thin lines. Tapping on one reveals its name, description, and cost on the side panel, along with a purchase button. Here you can see things that increase the speed of summoning, the amount of monsters summoned, as well as unlocking new monster types and new rooms to do things in. And that's as far as I'm willing to go for the playable prototype. I just want to show that I mean business. I really don't want to get in over my head this time. But after that, the plan is Phase 4, the Extraction Lab. This screen has a techno-magic vibe. There's a crystal-based energy focus in the top left corner with a shadow below it. There's a second shadow next to the first one, with a dim crystal above it. On the right is a list of items obtained in all the previous screens, while a new list of essences is on the right of that. Tapping on the shadow on the left brings up a name, description, and icon of an item and its associated essences. There's a start button next to that. Tapping on the gem changes the text to show Extractor A with the ratio and speed value underneath it. The buttons have now changed to Speed and Amount with an area labeled Cost. These are the upgrade buttons. All of these things out here are very far off and subject to change. So far out that it's almost silly to even develop these thoughts without the previous phases being complete. But like I said earlier, I was just keeping the thoughts flowing. Phase 5, the Alchematorium, might be called the Distillery. A cauldron rests over a fire on the center left of the screen. A timer with digits extending into the hours floats above it, reading all 0. There's an icon of some sort of item with the word cost underneath. 2 items are listed here with a count. The text is faded if you can't afford it. There's a name and a description at the bottom of the screen. On the left of it is the word Start on a button. This is where the player would craft items that provide bonuses and unlock new content. Phase 6, the Phylactery. This is the pinnacle of the idea and the namesake of the game. This is becoming a Lich. This screen is composed of only a few things. There's a large pillow in the center of the screen. Below that is a button labeled Build. Above the pillow is a small list of items and the associated amount required. When the player has finally collected all of the required items and clicks Build, a new device appears on the center of the screen, with an arrow on either side. This is your phylactery. You can toggle different kinds of phylacteries with different designs. Once the player makes a selection and confirms the build, the player is now a Lich. The screen unlocks a new perk button, and the build button has been replaced with upgrade. Somewhere in this giant pile of ideas is a cult town that generates revenue automatically for the player, some sort of merging game, maybe. There's also 2 more skill screens that are related entirely to the Lich mechanics. So, what do you think? Does this sound interesting? Do you think I could do it? More importantly, will you be here to watch it? I think the correct next step is to load up Unity and start making a playable Phase 1. If you want to support me, I have a Patreon, there are channel subscriptions, but honestly, the best thing you could do is share my content with other people. Thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.